DJ Rusty B. Hope you're all safe and well. Oh, we're gonna get Tottenham. We're playing Tottenham. We're gonna win. I'm confident. I'm confident. Not long to kick off. Only a couple of hours now until kick off. So what we try and do with a couple of hours to go is our heads in the right space. We've heard the David Moyes press conference on Friday. We've digested that. We've seen what's come out of the embargo section, and I try and put together my predicted 11. My predicted 11 based on my thoughts, but also what Moyes has said, sort of trying to read between the lines. Obviously, both sides come into the game with lots of injuries, lots of people not playing as well. Obviously, on the Tottenham bench, there'll be no Antonio Conte, who's still being at home in Italy, recovering from his gallbladder operation, or recovering from it because he had it at the beginning of the month. It's only now he should be back in the actual the thick of it now, but is what it is. So let me bring up my old where's my old screen? Let's bring up my pitch. There we go. We brought up the pitch. Let's move my mic a little bit this way. There we go. Perfect. So West Ham Spurs 4:30 kickoff. We love playing Spurs. Spurs ain't playing us. What do we think we're going to do? Now, in terms of formation, I think we're going to keep it similar. We've had the Chelsea game, the Newcastle game. Obviously, at the Chelsea game, there's a couple of injuries, which we'll go through as and when we get to those particular players in terms of those positions. But for me, it's we'll start off in goal. I mean, Fabianski's in goal for me. Fab's in goal. I'm not gonna. There's no point me putting it up because he's gonna be. I know he's gonna be in goal, and also I haven't got the graphic. But we carry on. Fabianski's in goal. Now, who's he going to be partnering? Who's going to be in his sort of back three? Moisey says Nayoff has a chance. That's enough for me. That's enough for me. See, I've got a graphic with both of them now. So Agard goes in without a shadow of a doubt. The reason, he is for me the reason why we've had this upturning form. If you look at the rest of the side is relatively the same. The only person who's come in and is playing week in, week out, and we're playing week in, week out a lot stronger as a team is Nayoff Agard. He's exceptional. Exceptional player. We know what a good player he is. And even if he's there at 75%, you throw him in. You throw him in. We have to. I mean, you look back at previous Moyes press conferences. He said that for the Chelsea game that Kira wasn't playing. He wasn't playing at all, and then it turns out that the club released pictures of the training sessions, and he's there, and he starts and plays 90 minutes. So, by all accounts, when Nayoff had his scan, it was very minor damage, and therefore then he had a race against time. But for Moisey to say in the press conference that basically he's, and let me bring it up so you can see. I mean, it's probably been quoted so many times anyway. But if I just put this up, or take that as well. Lucas Nayoff has got a chance, but we're not sure yet if he's going to make it. So if you're not sure he's going to make it, why do you say that he's not? You say no, he's not playing, but he's got a chance to make it. That to me is enough to put him in. In terms of the rest, I think a lot of the team picks itself, to be honest. So the likes of the back three will lead. I think the back three will be the back three that played the Chelsea game. So we'll bring them all in together as a unit. So you've got Ogbonna, Antilo Kira. I think the three of them played very well against Chelsea. Second half, particularly, it's about getting out of the gate early. I think for us, with the last two games, Newcastle and the Chelsea game, have both come in. They've both scored. Goals have been chalked off, and then they've scored like almost straight after that. To be honest, we could have been 3-0 down at Chelsea, in all honesty. So to come over a point, I think was a really good point. And second half, we were a lot stronger. And Chelsea, I think Chelsea surprised us a little bit. I think João Felix surprised us a bit. I think Spurs, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get Harry Kane dropping off. You're going to get Son running in and about. And I think Son versus Agard is going to be a really interesting battle, really good battle. And then you've got the pace of Tilo Kira in case if Son drifts out onto their left or right-hand side as well. It's a nice balance to it. And you've got Harry Kane, who he tends to drop off, doesn't he? And then if he wants to come up and play as a 9, for example, you've got Oggy to hold him up. And they know how. And Oggy would, he's defended against Harry Kane for many times, so he'll be able to impart that knowledge onto the likes of Tillo and Aged. Left wing back, I think Emerson comes back and keeps his place. I think he's been exceptional since Aged's been back in the side. So he'll be back there, and I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, we know Spurs have got Hugo Lloris out, and that will feed into my midfield picks, to be honest. We know that also Rodrigo Bentancur is also out for the season. We know Busuma's out for the season. Well, no, out for the season, but he's having a ankle injury. We know Ryan Sessegnon is out as well. So there's some big players. They've still got some good players, but there's some big first teamers who aren't going to be in the squad. And so we need to take full advantage of that. On the right hand side, he's been playing well, really well recently, is Vladimir Sufal. He keeps his place. And I like the fact we could have a relatively settled side, bar one or two, or one, I think, really. One sort of first teamer not being in the squad. And we've already alluded to that because we've said that Moyes has said he's out. We're seeing some balance now. We're seeing some consistency in terms of team selection, and to me, that's what we need at the moment. That's what we need. We don't need surprises yet. If it's working at the moment, and for me, it's about just maintaining the level of performance, maintaining the momentum, because after this game, we've got a must-win game. And I know people say, we're just picking up draws, but no one gave us a lot. There's a big chunk of the fan base didn't give us any hope for these 3 games: Spurs, the Chelsea game, the Newcastle game. The fact is, if we get something out of the Spurs game, which I think we can do, we're more than capable to getting into this side, particularly with the manager not there and stuff like that. It gives you those extra 3 points, but it means nothing if we don't beat Forest next week, in my opinion. That's what needs to happen. We need to beat Forest next week. And then, we've got 6 points in 4 games, which, considering 3 of those games were against Newcastle, Chelsea and Spurs, ain't too shabby. And then we go into the Man United game in the Cup. So, it's sort of, and then we start getting to Europe again. Draw for the last 16 will be next Friday, I believe. Let's move into midfield. Obviously, Skipper Rice is in, Basmati Billy Bonds is in, and he'll be relishing Spurs, relishing it. Obviously, this is the first time we're playing at 3 Point Lane without Mark Noble in the playing squad. And so obviously he's sporting director, so I'm sure he'll be in it. I'm sure he's been telling a lot of the newer players about the rivalry between West Ham and Tottenham. Moyes mentioned it in his pre-match press conference as well. So yeah, and I think it's good to be understanding of that needle between the two sets of fan bases as well, because it just gets you prepared for that. In terms of who he partners in the middle, and obviously I'm going on what Moyes says. By all accounts, on Friday morning, before there was, I think, X put on his Patreon that there was a slim chance that Lucas Paqueta will be back for the Spurs game. For me, I think it was a game. I think it's always going to be a game too soon for him. I can see him back for the Forest game. Also, there was no mention about timeframes for Kurt Zouma as well, which is interesting in that he wasn't mentioned. So who knows, you could open up, we get a 3:30 this afternoon. You can see that Zuma's instead of Ogbonna, but I don't think it's going to happen. But there's been no talk about Zoom at the moment. It's all about Paqueta and Aged, which is really interesting. We also know Maxwell Cornet apparently is back tomorrow, Monday. He's reporting for training. Well, he's coming back, and he might be doing training. What is he said? What the fuck's going on with him? I don't know. So, some calls have been for Lanzini to be in that second midfielder spot. Fornals, Downs. But I think what he'll do is he'll go to type for this. Part of the reason also is because Lloris isn't there. So those sort of corners, crosses into the box, free kicks where they can put the ball in the mixer. I think it'd be Tommy Soucek. Who, to be fair, objectively looking at it, last few games where he's come on, he's done all right. He's come in and just done what Tommy Soucek does. Doesn't do anything fancy. Just literally is there as a lump. Which is not a disservice to him, but for me, it's like he's not a technical player. He's there. He's a good, combative midfielder. He'll get stuck in, and also he'll be utilised when it comes to set plays as well. So I think he'll go with Soucek. If we was at home, he may well have gone for a Downs or a Lanzini possibly, but I think he'll go with Tommy Soucek. But then again, you never know with Moyes sometimes. Sometimes he loves a curveball. On the left-hand side, and obviously Ben Rama played there last week, was taken off at half-time pretty much. Just after, but for me, I think it's a time for Fornals this game. I think he brings that energy level which you need. He can scuttle around. He can keep the high press. His work rate is phenomenal, and I think he deserves to come in. And I think I'd play him on that left-hand side because I just think he offers that little bit more solidity defensively. If the game stretches out, then I bring Ben Rama on. And that's always been my issue for Ben Rama. I think he's a fantastic player, but he needs to be played when the game is right for him. He doesn't seem, when it's a real tight game, that's not, and that was the Chelsea game, really tight, and he just hasn't got it doesn't suit him as a player. He likes it. It's a lot more loose. He's maybe got a more loose positioning. The game's a lot bit open. That's when you see Ben Rama come into his own, and that's tends to happen in the second half. So I think he's always going to be at the moment an impact player. You might agree, disagree. A lot of people would disagree with that, but he didn't play very well. It's probably his worst game all season was against Chelsea. Whereas when he came off the bench, I think it was against Derby, if I remember, early sort of this period of relative form, he was really good. Him and Emerson were playing some lovely football. So I think it's going to be him. On the right-hand side, it's going to be Bowen. Calls for him to be dropped and maybe Antonio move out to the right-hand side. I think, again, that's a fan booking. We'd love that. We'd love to see Antonio maybe on the wing there rather than up front. But we know it's not going to happen. As I said, I was talking to some of the guys at the club yesterday, and they were saying Antonio in training, because they obviously filmed the training sessions and stuff like that, was sharper than they've seen him for months. He loves Spurs. He loves playing Spurs. And so there's certain players at certain times which work against certain opposition. And for some reason, Spurs is Antonio's the opposite to kryptonite. Sort of that sort of Super Mario Brothers. You hit the cue, you hit the big question mark, and you get your mushroom. This is his mushroom. Weirdest analogy I can possibly think of. I don't know why it popped in my head, but he loves playing against Spurs. And sometimes you play, even if he was really out of form, when he comes to Spurs, you play him because it just works. The same as like Callum Wilson and us, Glenn Murray and us, Romelu Lukaku and us, Rashford, all these players, when it comes to West Ham, they just turn it on. And Antonio loves it. And especially with the likes of a goalkeeper who's not Hugo Lloris, is not a first team goalkeeper. Midfield wise, they're not going to be able to double up on him as much because their first choice midfield is pretty much out, apart from Højbjerg, who comes back from suspension. He's their only sort of combative. They might bring Skip in, maybe, Ollie Skip, but it's not Bentancur, who's a brilliant player. Even Basuma's a very good player as well. So they're sort of, for me, that midfield battle, we can absolutely dominate that. And that's where this game's going to be won. Same as the Chelsea game. And you saw the Chelsea game, more as the game was going forward, Potter and Moyes were bringing on more central midfielders to really pack it out. I think they took off a couple of their wingers and they brought on Zigic, I think it's it, and Mason Mount, and try to pack it out. We brought on Flynn, and obviously Soucek had already come on for Paqueta earlier on, but we were trying to pack that midfield out, and this is going to be the same game in terms of that midfield battle. And I think we've got, particularly with Soucek and Rice, and who's not playing for Spurs more than who plays for Spurs, I think there's a real opportunity there. But that's my 11. That is 11 it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. What do you think? In the comments, put your 11s. Put your 11s in there. I'll be really interested to see what you think about my take on putting Suchek. I'm sure some of you will put Lanzini in there, and maybe myself would probably prefer Downs in there instead of Suchek. But I think there's sort of I try and balance what I'd like and what is going to happen, to be honest. And Downs, obviously, West Ham boy, put him in front of Spurs like we did with Noble. Noble's, when Noble plays Spurs, he has like a FIFA, like silver attribute card. Everything goes up 10. And that'd be better for Antonio rather than bloody Mario and a mushroom. Idiots. But Downs would do the same. And so, yeah, you could put Downs instead of Suchek, but I just think Moisey likes that extra height that Suchek brings. But he has come out and spoken about giving Downs a lot more game time and stuff like that. So who knows? But let me know in the comments as always. Thank you to everyone for your support. We'll be back in not long, couple of hours for the match watch along for the Spurs game. So make sure you check that out and join us. Watch the game at the same time and have the game on silent and just watch us and comment. We have it like a watch party. That's what it's like. Take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Keep the faith, my friends. Come on, you irons. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Ta-ta. Bye-bye.